Hiraeth is a Welsh concept of longing for home. Hiraeth is a word that cannot be completely translated, meaning more than solely missing something or missing home. It implies the meaning of missing time, an era, or a person, including homesickness for what may not exist any longer.
Bending Not Breaking, a Patreon exclusive, The Terminal Part 2. And welcome back for another episode of Bending Not Breaking. I'm Sunshine Mayfield.
And this is Ben Pruitt.
And on the dials, but also chatting a lot on this episode, we're bringing back the one, the only, Max Gongaware. What?
Whoa.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are diving in a month later to The Terminal Part 2.
It must have been really hard for y'all having, watched the first half of The Terminal and not really finished it. I mean, really tough for y'all.
Do you think people did that? You think people watched the first half of the movie and they're like, this is where they stopped in the podcast, so we will wait a month and then we'll watch
That's
the rest of it?
absolutely what they did, 100%.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how we watched the show. Max, is that how you watched the movie?
I'd have just watched it twice.
You love this movie.
You
That's
do
why
love
we
this
picked
movie.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, it is so good to be back. We are ready to jump on in. Everyone's doing well. Everyone's doing good. Ben, you good?
I'm good.
Max, you good?
Can't complain.
Anything exciting happening?
No.
Yeah, okay. Well,
Not at this time.
that's a Max line. You're not allowed to say that.
I mean, I just did.
He can say whatever he wants.
That's
See?
true.
I can't believe you, the host of a welcoming and inclusive podcast like this, would say to someone, you're not allowed to say that?
Progress, not perfection.
Is that progress or not progress? That's like
overall.
the
It's like
opposite.
overall. It's like like sometimes you as long as you take 10 steps forward and 2 steps back, as long as you're like netting more positive over
Oh,
time.
okay.
Progress can't be perfect. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
That is a great quote. I love it.
Trying to be the best I can, just one step at a time.
Mm.
All right,
God willing.
God willing.
You sound like a Nuke Lelouch post-game interview right now.
Who?
Nuke Lelouch?
Ben, who's Nuke Lelouch?
Lelouch is a character on Code Geass, which is an anime, and Lelouch is the main protagonist.
So this person
And so-
coached that main protagonist on Code Geass. Is that who you're talking about,
That
Max?
must be it.
Yeah, that's probably it. Who knows who the originator of whatever I was talking
He's
about?
kind of like an
You
anti-hero
don't watch
in Code
Avatar.
Geass.
Do you watch any other anime?
Depends on how you define anime.
How do you define anime?
Typical definition,
The standard.
So let me rephrase the question. What's your go-to cartoon of choice? Do you have a cartoon of choice?
Maybe like a cartoon of choice. How about I'm just sorting through all the different cartoons I watch.
Not at this time.
Name a cartoon.
The Simpsons.
Oh, great. You ever watch it?
Sure.
Do you watch it? Do you watch it?
What does that mean?
Do you
does just saying the same thing twice in a row make
Are
it
you-
mean more?
Yeah.
you watch it,
Yes,
watch it?
does.
Do you
It's called
drink it?
emphasis.
Do you speak into a microphone? Speak into a microphone?
That makes a difference.
Because
Because you can speak into a microphone, but then sometimes you need to speak into the microphone.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it should make sense, the recap that you're about to do on part 2. So if I'm not mistaken, we stopped our last episode right around the time.
Victor got hired by the contractor people.
That's right. And so from that moment on, you need to take us to the end of the movie with the best that you can, as someone who's watched this movie at least 50 times.
And I know it was a month ago, but if you recall, Max got about not into the plot of the movie during his recap last time. So
I disagree.
I
covered that he was stuck in a terminal. What else? I mean,
he didn't get far.
You've got 30 seconds to get us from him getting a job to the end of the movie, and away we go.
Victor Navorsky continues his mission. He's been hired as a contractor by a, whatever you call it, a construction group inside the terminal. Exciting stuff.
Well done.
He's also kind of infatuated with this woman named Amelia. Meanwhile, he's trying to get his green card so that he can go hang out in a jazz club with Benny Golson and get his autograph.
10 seconds
and
left.
finally go home. throughout the rest of this episode of Bending Not Breaking, we will discuss scenes in which
And stop.
a lot of things happen, including the end of the movie. And I guess you'll just have to wait and see.
For someone who like really loves this movie, he really doesn't want to like dive into the details.
No
I find it
spoilers.
interesting.
No spoilers. For this podcast, it's about to be about this movie.
Yeah, but we got to keep people wanting more.
Do people want more of the terminal? Do people want a terminal too?
Y'all are the ones who decided to let me do Max's
Hey,
choice.
Patreon
That's
people,
fair.
if you want more Terminal, I'm sorry, we cannot give it to you.
We're finishing it
We are
today.
finishing it today.
But we're gonna pick other things well, Max will pick other things. So
We'll see. I mean, it depends on how the listenership goes for this one, right?
No, I think we're gonna keep doing it,
doing
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And we're just going to keep doing it and just know that, like, yeah, we're going to let Max continue to choose stuff knowing that nobody listens to Max's choice episodes.
I think
We might
we do.
steer
our
you
Patreon
in
supporters
other
listen,
directions,
which we need
you
to
know.
thank our Patreon supporters for listening to this.
Absolutely.
We don't
and
know
for-
if that.
and
No,
for
but what I'm
supporting.
saying is we don't know. Like, at the time of this recording, we have not yet even released part 1, right? So we
Wow,
don't know
Max,
what
way to, like show the
Max's
goods.
choice
It's
as
okay.
the
He'll
producer.
fix it in post.
As the
Okay.
producer, I get to give a peek behind the curtains, right? We don't know what the listenership is going to be. My guess is they're going to see, oh, this isn't an episode about, what's the show? Avatar.
I don't think you give yourself enough credit, Max. I think people like you. I think people.
Do you think people are going to listen because it's Max's choice?
I think
I think they're going to see
I
Max's
think-
choice
I think
and be like,
people
okay.
want to hear from you.
I think they want to hear from you, and
Why?
I think they enjoy engaging with this type of viewing and listening and paying attention to media, not just Avatar. And so I think at this point, the people who are supporting us and patrons, if I'm completely wrong about this, please let us know. But
Tell us on our Facebook page that you are already a part of.
yeah, I think that people are bought into the concept of how we're viewing the media, not just the media itself. And so,
And it's fun to dive into something completely new.
yeah, it's refreshing.
This movie was made in 2004.
Completely new to them or to me.
You've seen it.
I watched it once, but to be fair,
Not
I
this
didn't
way.
love it the way that you loved it. So this was a new way for me to engage with it.
I've heard it both ways.
I give the Terminal a 7 out of 10.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's
that is-
decent. It's
pretty good.
positive.
That's fine.
But the
More like a 6.5.
the relationship between Amelia and Victor
Definitely lost it a couple points.
Kind of drags.
I told you that.
Yet you love this movie.
Yeah.
Sure, I do love this movie.
Is it because it feels like home? Does this movie feel a little bit like home to you?
Sure.
That's an interesting question.
Once you come back, it's a movie I can come back to anytime and be charmed by, and I guess those are some homey qualities.
Well,
The reason I asked is because our lens is
homesickness.
homesickness. And I think before we jump into the movie,
We need to identify what homesickness
correct.
is.
And we've all worked as camp counselors, right?
Yeah.
So we've experienced homesickness, but what a 12-year-old might experience as homesickness might look very different than what a 45-year-old man trapped in a terminal might experience as homesickness.
Indeed.
Or what a 30-year-old or anybody or an 80-year-old might experience as homesickness.
Keep
And so-
naming ages.
yeah, I would love a 71-year-old or maybe like a 53-and-a-half-year-old.
You're onto something.
Or someone who's 29 in leap years, which would make them like 116.
A lot. 29 times 4.
Yeah. I did the math quickly. I don't know if it's accurate.
There's no way to know.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think that I lost my train of thought. What is homesickness? What is it, and how do we define it, and how does that equate the way that we get to help people with it?
Well, I think also with homesickness, it begs the question of what is home. And so I think that's worth talking about too. And so like we have to, before we can get to like homesickness, I think we have to talk about what home is. Max, what is home to you?
It is the opening track from Mark Broussard's album Corinne Crow, which I highly recommend.
Sunshine, what does home mean to you?
I think it's a cliche for a reason, but home is where the heart is, and I think that's
Live, laugh, love.
live, laugh, love. But I think there's something really to that when you unpack it. This place and understanding that home can be with your parents and siblings, but it can also be with your friends and chosen family. Some people's homes don't feel like home. And so I think it's a place where you can be your true, authentic self, hopefully.
Is home a
Um,
place or is it a feeling?
I think it's a feeling.
I
would
think,
argue it's a feeling more so. Can a building give you that feeling? Absolutely.
yeah, I think that's, yes,
But
I
I
agree with
think
this.
it's the people and the culture and the way you feel when you're inside that building that really makes something home.
Well, you know what? And
It's not a house.
this is bending not breaking, right?
It's a
And so
home.
one of the reasons I think this podcast exists and is so successful because of y'all is the fact that Avatar: The Last Airbender creates a major sense of home, because it creates this sense of like comfort when we can return to a source, a media, a TV show, a book, and return to it because it brings us comfort in times when we are feeling struggling, right? I think that's what home feels like. And so I'm going to be real with y'all. Last night, I was tweeting around because I was feeling like I go and engage with social media more when I am feeling lonely, and when I am feeling like I am not connected. And so that's a bid for connection, is when I'm on social media. And what I realized while I was doing that is I wanted to be watching something that like brought me home, that made me feel comforted. I didn't want to have to think about something new. I didn't want to have to think about it. And so, you know what was on in the background while I was doing it on social media is Avatar.
Terminal.
I was gonna say Hook.
Right? Avatar for me is it's a sense of comfort. I don't have to I can connect with them. It's a really cool thing that show creates.
Well, it's good to be able to take things like the Terminal or Avatar and go into it deeply like we are, but it also is nice to be able to put it on in the background and know that you can step out of the room and come back and be in a familiar place.
And it's familiarity. And I think Matt, you talked about this, but like, is the Terminal home for you, Max? Right? Because I wonder, because when you're watching the Terminal, let's dive into the feelings you're experiencing when you watch the Terminal. You were talking about how you were charmed. Like, what else is it that happens when you watch it?
I think it is like the musical score is like just like brings back fond memories. It is a movie that I originally watched with my family, so that certainly has some elements of home behind it. And I think that there are just, I don't know. It's not like there are so many movies from our generation that like leagues and leagues of people like quote from.
Yeah.
But I always enjoy kind of being on a different, like quoting from things that like people don't understand.
The road less traveled.
The road less traveled. So like for me, how many times have the two of you
Hemingway.
Yeah. Thanks.
How many times have the two of you heard me quote the Terminal, and like you know that it's the Terminal, but also
know that no one else knows that it's the Terminal.
It's hilarious that I'm quoting the Terminal because nobody else in the room has any idea what the HE
double hockey sticks
I'm talking about. Like, how wonderful is it to just go
50-50.
50-50.
And I do that for a lot of movies that, like, I know, like, getting into this might be a future Max's choice, but my favorite baseball movie of all time is not Eight Men Out. It's not The Sandlot. It's not Bull Durham. It's Little Big League.
Love it. I can't wait for us to
Which
do
I
that
know
in a few
Sunshine.
months.
I know Sunshine loves that movie. So when I do that quote of, again, the people listening right now are going to have no idea what I'm talking about. But there's this bit where he's talking about how amazing kids are these days, and he's talking about, I played winter ball in Venezuela, and the kids there are amazing. Every single one of them is speaking Spanish. And then another character says, well, they speak Spanish in Venezuela. And that's just like one of my favorite movie lines of all time. So sometimes I will just say,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Sometimes I will say, like, if we're having a conversation about something that impresses you, I'll just say, well, they speak Spanish in Venezuela.
But I think that's important because if we're tackling homesickness, the understanding of when someone misses home, what are they truly missing? Are they missing the building? Are they missing the people? Are they missing the feeling that comes with those things? Are they missing the comfort that comes with those things? Because if we're going to really tackle homesickness, which it really can almost be pared down to loneliness, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Which is deadly. Like, there are studies that show that loneliness links to earlier heart attacks and cardiovascular issues, that it actually has a wear and tear on your body. And this understanding that if we can find a way to combat loneliness, combat homesickness, and create new homes where people can belong, it really, one, ties into our earlier episode of inclusion, but you're doing you are helping people physically when you're able to do that. You are helping them be better people, but you're also you might be saving a life by doing that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I liked the definition of like hiraeth at the beginning, our cold open, right, is this Welsh concept. It explains that it's more than just missing home. It's missing time, an era, a person. It's missing something that may not exist any longer, right? It's this nostalgia that you long for that you're missing. And so again, I think it's more than just missing a place, right? It's more than that. It's deeply rooted in missing that feeling of security that exists and I think security and safety are what we really like are always looking for, whether we realize it or not.
And so one of the first things I'd like to kind of get into from the movie is one of the earliest moments of this second part that we dive into is this moment of this man, Mr. Milo Dragovich.
Yep.
I don't know how I'm saying
That's
that
how
correctly.
the Tooch says it.
The Tooch.
Mr. Milo Dragovich.
He is just in unconsolable anger, unconsolable rage, fear, all of these emotions you're feeling in this person because he is desperately trying to get home to give medicine to his father. And that's homesickness to me, right? That moment is this yearning to be back home to protect the ones that you love creates this homesickness in him. And how real that was for this character going through. Yeah. And the ability for Victor to come in and speak the language immediately creates this sense of safety, this sense of someone knows that I'm here, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And how powerful that really is.
So I want to give a content warning. We're about to talk about suicidal ideation. We're about to talk about the mental health that is involved in this scene. And if that's something that you want to pass over, just skip ahead a few minutes, and we will not begrudge anybody for doing that.
Absolutely.
So going into this, to be driven to the point where you're in a group of people and you have no other option than to threaten your own life in order to save someone you love. Like what? Like I'm tearing up thinking about it. Like this is a moment that is huge, and it's like it's passed over as something that. This is a very dark moment in this movie, and to put myself in that situation requires that I get like immensely emotional. And I'm gonna be real. I'm not like I don't know that who would I do that for? Who would I do that for? And I think about it, and I'm to like be in like I think I would submit and be. Is that, what is that? Is that courage? Is that like, what is that feeling, that sense of being cornered where this is all you have? Because to me, I think I would be submissive in that moment, and I would give in to the rules because I'm a rule follower by nature. But like, I don't know, like this is huge. This is a big moment. What are y'all's thoughts on this?
I think one of the critical takeaways from this moment, and I'm not sure yet where the lens of homesickness comes into this, but like Ben, you mentioned like being a rule follower. Well, this moment, what we end up getting from this moment is Victor figures out a kind of gray area where, you know what, if I tell Mr. Milodragovich a different version of this rule, he can kind of get away with what he's trying to do, where he kind of explains, like, if you tell Frank Dixon that this medicine is for your goat instead of for your dad, you're going to be able to go home and bring the medicine with you so that you can save your dad. So I think there are a couple different pieces to this. Is sometimes rules are created to be followed, but also you have to apply like
context
and heart and humanism to these rules at times, and I think that's Frank Dixon's big flaw throughout this movie.
Well, and his boss says that to him. Like he says a flawed line. He says compassion is the foundation of this country, which
That
I don't know how I feel about that.
might
but
not
like
be true.
the message of that I liked. Like that is a very idealistic thought of the founding of our country.
It's the
but
most
like
generous assumption.
exactly. But like it's one of those things where when Toot shows his ass to the higher ups, probably shouldn't have said that, but like they catch him and see him in this moment, and
We'll fix it in post.
yeah, Max, do that. Compassion is the foundation of the country, and this is a moment where Frank doesn't do that, right? Instead, it's this penalizing perspective of like I have to follow the rules and I have to do it to a T. And sometimes like the message here was that we have to bend those rules sometimes in order to be compassionate and kind.
Well, and I think how it does play into homesickness is using the resources and knowledge that you have to help others, to help find solutions with others, is incredibly impactful and creates that sense of belonging and creates that safety and creates a place where someone can either get home or find home. And I think that it's a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment where Victor Navorsky is able to do this and has the empathy and understanding of how to work the system so that this can happen, and how detrimental it can be if you don't have that person there for you. Because what would have happened if Victor Navorsky hadn't have been there?
Well, there was a translator in Newark, an hour away.
Who really knows if that translator would have made it?
Yeah, it's just a really tough moment.
And it, just so beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. And to be fair, I do not know enough about why that rule technically exists. I'm sure it has been abused in the past, right? I'm sure that there is a reason why a rule around creating and bringing in drugs into the country and then taking them out of the country, I'm sure, right? There's a valid reason that rule exists, right? And this is a moment in which it's really a bureaucratic miscommunication as to, like, I wonder if he would have bought a different flight and not gone through the United States in order to get that through to his father had he not he would have taken measures. So like our ignorance and our inability to understand certain rules about certain countries is a huge barrier to doing what we are trying to do and accomplish our goals. And I think that's tough.
Doing that in our own country is tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, laws are meant to be tough to decipher and tough to understand, and they're dense, and there's loopholes, and there's all these other things. And if you don't have someone who's there to help you along to navigate that, your quote-unquote punishment is so vastly different than someone who has all of those resources and is able to navigate the legal system in a different way.
Well, a bureaucracy gets in the way of kindness. That's my takeaway from this moment is bureaucracy gets in the way of kindness and compassion.
Do you think that Frank Dixon's lack of compassion is representative of a lack of a sense of, like, what do you think his sense of home is like? As far as we know, he's a single man in his 40s who, like, is married to his job, if you will.
You know what? We see he likes fishing. He has fish on his wall. Mm-hmm. Victor tries to bring him a fish. Like fish. But the fact that he likes fishing, and I think that that's probably a sense of home for him. When he's fishing, when he is out on the water, when he is with himself and able to, like, that's probably his only alone time, that aside from, you know what I mean? I wonder if that's home for him.
Well, and we are more likely to replicate the behaviors that are modeled for us than the ones that we're told about or the ones that we discuss. And so it is likely that his behavior is based off of a model that was given for him when he was younger, or saw heavily when he was growing up. There's a good chance that what we see as lack of compassion and seeing things in a very black and white manner is likely some way that he did grow up.
I'm not even convinced Frank Dixon actually likes to fish. I think that could be him modeling the behavior of his boss, who just bought a boat and is retiring. Like, I wonder if
That's
that's
an interesting read. That's interesting. I didn't catch that either. That's huh.
Well, and we search for ways to create things and bring normalcy into what we expect or think that we need to behave. One of the questions I wrote down in this part was, how do we search for normalcy when it comes to creating a home and making that home when we're feeling homesick? And I feel like we see Victor do this throughout the course of the movie. He creates he creates a night out on the town that's more probably reminiscent of a date night that he's been on before, or one that he
You think they eat a lot of cannelloni in Krakosia?
no. But he's looking for love and connection with Amelia. He's creating that date life. He's finding a job that is familiar to him.
I think more literally though, like he created like a home. He created a space that is his. Right?
Yes.
He built a bed. He like has this space where this is where he's living. And I think that's so integral to his mental health. To have a place where he can go that is only his.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's massive. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's huge. Like he goes there, that's where he's learning, that's where he reads, that's where he lives, that's where he like it's just I think having our own space is an integral piece of that safety we're talking about when we think about home, right? And being able to go to that space to retreat and retire and like I'm an introvert, I need my space, right? Extroverts not necessarily. That everybody needs their space at some point, but like I think that having that retreat time is very much necessary.
Absolutely. What other moments did we see that we want to highlight about homesickness?
There's a few. I'm interested to talk about Amelia in the bookstore. That's a very quick moment, but her affinity with history is, I think, grounded in this. Like, why does she like history? And I think it's a similar concept as to like, why do we go back to Avatar again and again and again? Why do we go back to the terminal again and again and again? It's because I wonder if learning those things and grounding yourself in that information for some people can be very, this is where I feel safe. This is where I'm learning. This is where I'm growing. This is interesting to me. This feels like home, right? And so I wonder if it seems like Amelia is a learner. And I feel like whenever she's learning, that might be a time when she feels more closer to home, right? And so she reads when she's on planes, when she's constantly traveling. Literally, that's an interesting perspective because you don't. Where is your home when you're constantly traveling, right? And I wonder for her if it's
in history.
Yeah, exactly. How do y'all feel about that? That little theory.
It's a strong theory.
Thanks. Good talk.
Yeah, happy to be a part of that.
But I think it goes back to creating a home, and whether it's a physical one or this mental one, but finding that space of familiarity and comfort is really important for your own safety and personal well-being. And I think that's just the way that she does that. Absolutely.
I think one thing that stands out to me through the lens of homesickness is as we kind of learn more and more about the backstories of these peripheral characters, specifically Gupta, he is a fugitive from his home. And
This is big.
He is like literally he can't afford to be homesick because if he ever does get deported or ever does decide to go back home, his theory is that he's going to immediately get arrested and his family is there, his children are there, but he in his mind he can't afford to be homesick. And I wonder if his lack of I don't know how much of a sense of home he has in his current life, and I think that comes out through his suspicions and his paranoia and a lot of the way that we see that he lives his life.
Well, I think that's really important to highlight is that if you don't have a safe place to be or a place that you feel safe in, if you're constantly worried about being deported or constantly worried about being taken away from a home, it is incredibly difficult to focus, to live life in a productive way. It has an incredible toll on your mental health. And I think we see that from him. And it's one of the questions that I put down is this idea of as long as I keep my head down and my floor clean, they have no reason to deport me.
Yeah.
And so this idea of I have to be perfect and never mess up or else that could be the end is so detrimental.
I Yes.
and
Yes.
so real for so many people. And I think that just highlights it. And so this understanding of the mental toll that comes with that is absolutely devastating.
And let's be real, Gupta made a mistake. And it's a big mistake. Somebody's life was taken, right? And that's big. That's a big mistake. And I think what this lifts up for me is when I think about the people who are being detained on the border now, who their only flaw is that they were here in this country. And let's consider that, that being a flaw is even a tough thing to say. And so they there are so many stories of people who had to leave their countries because they were escaping something that was terrible and terrifying, and now we're sending them back, or worse, keeping them in a detainment center in which they can't see their kids, in which
Releasing kids but not releasing parents.
Yes, it really evokes that for me, and it's a really tough situation to think about, because if I were Gupta and I knew that was happening, there's no chance that I would have done what he did. There's no chance.
And he did it anyways.
And can we let's be another problematic portion of this is a guy who is stopping a plane from taking off, and he has a mop in his hand. He is then swarmed by 50 plus police with armed assault rifles, and they all leverage that mass weaponry against a man with a mop. I find that to be incredibly problematic.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but also a pretty good representation of real life.
Which is why it's problematic,
It's
is because it's too real, especially with our current day context, right? This was back in 2004 we decided. And so
So putting the
we
contextual lens
decided.
of 9/11.
But contextual lens of 9/11, and then 2, what's going on today. It's just, it's too much. It is too much. That's my thought. Sorry.
yeah, you didn't need 50 dudes with assault rifles barreling down on this one guy.
Unnecessary force.
Yeah, but
But again, unsurprising.
unsurprising. Yeah.
Yes. I was not shocked by this scene at all until
No.
we watched it just now.
But what does that say?
Right.
We
Exactly.
should be.
Exactly. Yes.
That should not be the norm.
I agree.
Especially when we're talking about individuals who just don't feel like that, even in their own city of living, the place they've lived their entire lives, to feel like an outsider or to feel like you don't belong.
Yeah.
Why? And that's such an. But why? Why are we forcing people to feel that way? Why do we have a system that is forcing people to feel that way?
I don't know.
Fear?
Going back into homesick, it is kind of neat. He knows he's gonna get deported, and probably once he gets back home, he's gonna get arrested, and life is probably not gonna be great for him. And yet, right after this all happens, he looks up into the window of the terminal, waves to Victor, and has a big old smile on his face when he says, "I'm going home."
I'm going home. What a moment. And that's just I'm going home. What a statement that carries so much weight. That's big. That's a big moment for sure.
Yeah, definitely love for Gupta.
Yeah.
Gratitude for Gupta.
Yeah.
All right, any other moments? Max, that was my next big moment, was that exact moment. So I'm glad that we saw that.
It was
that
also
was,
my next big moment.
Any other ones that we want to talk about, or any other moments of homesickness?
I'm going to be real.
Can we talk about? Well, do you want to be real first? You can be real first. This is what happens when life
keeping it
stops?
real goes wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say homesickness was a struggle for me on the second half, just to identify things and think about.
But isn't that part of the fun and the challenge? Is
Absolutely.
taking a lens that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily think it fits, but still finding these moments. We've pulled out several moments here that have been
very, very poignant.
Very
Yeah.
nice. Not nice. That's not the right word. Poignant's a better word. English. Max, what'd you have to say?
I've already forgotten.
So probably my last one is that jazz for Victor is a sense of home. And we see the peanut container, right?
Jazz, an ancient Caucasian form of art.
But like, I think music more than anything, yeah, music more than anything invokes like a stirring in our soul, right? Like, and it's this, like the promise that he made to his father to get to get this last signature, to get all these other signatures is what a committed person to spend 9 months in an airport doing this for the memory of his father. And I think if that doesn't spell home for me, then I don't know what does.
Well, and let's continue to talk about the power of music and
Yeah.
how that brings people together. This idea of I love when we could, and hopefully we'll be able to at some point, going to a live show. And I used to be someone who would say, if I don't have a friend to go with me, I'm not going to go. That used to be kind of my mentality. As I got older, I realized I was missing out on good shows because I couldn't find someone that was able to go or wanted to go.
Yep.
But then the first concert I think I went to by myself, I ended up meeting three strangers. We're all singing our hearts out. And it's this powerful tool of connection because you all know the words, you
Hold
know
hands
what's going on.
with strangers. Brene Brown.
And it's a beautiful moment.
You may have heard of her.
I think there's a reason we do that at summer camp. There's a reason we sing songs at summer camp.
Absolutely.
And it's to create a sense of, it doesn't matter if it's your 15th year there or your first, you get to learn this song that's a catch-along song or a repeat song, and someone gets to immediately feel like they belong, which is incredibly powerful. You do the same thing there's a Blue Ridge Leader School. There's always a song of the summer, right?
Yes.
And it serves a similar purpose.
Well, and I think that singing with people, singing is vulnerable, period. Like singing with people, like people don't sing when they're not feeling safe, right?
Right.
Singing is inherently like implying that the scene is safe, right?
Correct.
And I think that's something that's really important to take note of, right? And like music is it is a message, one, to anyone who is in the room that like this is a safe spot, unless it's the Rains of Castamere, and that's just a not safe song.
No, it is not. And still too soon.
Yeah,
Still too soon?
probably too soon. But like singing specifically, not
Like 8 years ago, still too soon.
Yeah, but singing specifically is people don't sing unless they're feeling safe. That is my proposal.
Oh, just dance. Just dance and sing.
Yeah, well, and
there's
again,
such a power to it.
invoking Brene Brown again, like I think that what her 10th guidepost to wholehearted living is laughter, song, and dance must be cultivated in order to be a wholehearted human being.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to engage with laughter, you have to engage with singing, and you have to engage with dancing. And that is profoundly uncomfortable for a lot of people. But I think it is necessary for us to engage with our whole hearts with the world. I love her. She's pretty great.
She is great. Any other things we want to tackle before we take a quick break and then jump into a devotion and gratitude?
Do we need to talk about the role of Star Trek?
Let's
in
talk
this
about
film?
the role of Star Trek. Yeah, go ahead.
I've never watched Star Trek, but what I gather is that it's maybe there's a sense of like people trying to make their way back home. Is that a thing in Star Trek?
I'm
wouldn't
not
know.
familiar enough with the fandom.
But is Star Trek also being a connection between Enrique Cruz?
Mm-hmm.
Diego Luna plays Enrique Cruz. Whew. And
Well done.
Officer Torres, played by Zoe Saldana.
Yes, correct. You're going. I was connecting
Like
the dots in my head.
like that being kind of one of the things that they initially connect over.
Yeah.
Is that an example of like something like, oh, this connection, this is our home base? Is that like, maybe I'm like, we're not really talking about homesickness anymore, but now we're just using home base as a metaphor for a sense of home.
I think you are. If we're talking about homesickness in the way that we cultivated at the beginning, where it can be the sense of loneliness, this need to be with people, absolutely that sense of connection and connecting on a level of, you watch Star Trek? I watch Star Trek.
I feel more at home with you.
I feel more at home with you. And there's the book Click by the author that Ben's going to name right now.
Orion Ram Brofman.
Because that's a name.
It's two people.
yeah.
They're brothers.
But
Oh, I was thinking of Switch.
No, click. One of the accelerators of connection is similarities. And one of the things they talk about in that is that it's not necessarily the potency of the similarity, but the amount that you have
and
there.
that's really important. It's a huge, and it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive.
Like, because you would think if our religion matches, then we're more likely to connect.
Yeah, that's a big connection.
But that connection means just as much as I watch Star Trek, you watch Star Trek.
Correct.
Or I like tacos, you like tacos.
Yeah. If this is irritating, like if you're like, I don't know about that, I highly recommend the book. It's really short, but it's really powerful.
Well, and again, it's accelerators to creating connection, right? The more similarities you have, eventually you will pull in and dive into the deep connections that are created by those things, similar experiences that you've gone through. But to create the initial connection and to feel that click that you're trying to create, the amount of similarities is going to be a faster accelerator.
Truth.
Because you're more likely to get into those and feel like home so that you can dive deeper into the big connectors. But that's really important. So when you're talking about combating homesickness and creating that space for other people, connection and finding similarities is a big part of that. And so I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Max. Any other things that we want to bring up before we jump to our quick break and then devotion and gratitude?
What about the taxi driver?
What about the taxi driver?
I got here a couple days ago.
Yeah. Like, he says, where are you going? Ramada Inn. I want to go see Benny Golson. And then Victor is a king of small talk at this point. He says, oh, like, how long have you been here? Since Tuesday. And just the I don't know, the foil between Victor's journey versus that taxi driver's journey, and
Tuesday. I hate Tuesday.
how home connects to that, if at all. If it doesn't, then I'm just happy to share an anecdote from my favorite movie.
I think what that throws into sharp relief is just how profoundly homesick Victor must have been, right? Yes, he plays it off well in this whole movie about being able to live in this airport, but like, just getting that signature, not having been home in months, having to live in subpar conditions, having to like fight your way to earn money, and then to get thrown into a situation where this guy has no clue what Victor has just gone through. And it's just like, oh, I got here Tuesday. And just like, I would feel so unseen in that moment. And I just think that would throw into sharp relief how homesick I actually felt.
Absolutely.
Good job, Max. Thanks for lifting that up.
Oh, he's had so many good ones. I like it when Max talks more.
He's fun.
If only he would watch Avatar.
Yeah.
But I guess that's why we're doing these things.
Yeah. So you're going to watch Avatar now?
Not at this time.
Classic Max. All right, we'll be right back, and we'll jump back in with the devotion and our gratitude.
Friends, loved ones, patrons, people of all kinds. Welcome back to a Patreon exclusive episode of Bending, Not Breaking. My name is Max Gongaware. Throughout this episode,
Oh my God. Okay, we're done. Okay, good.
I'm joined by Sunshine Mayfield.
We got to stop letting him do things like this.
Yeah, this isn't working.
No, this is. I'm going NPR. I'm going NPR cognito.
Okay.
What are we doing, Max?
I'm joined
No, what are we doing?
by Sunshine Mayfield and Ben Pruitt. Welcome back. We're about to get ourselves into our devotion, and today,
It's like that episode of Parks and Rec where the
It's like,
yeah, maybe if you just stopped interrupting me, we'd be halfway through this devotion by now. Ever think about that?
continue.
You're making me homesick for this devotion. Speaking of homesickness and devotions, today's lens has been homesickness, and our devotion will be looking at homesickness with an air of air to it.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I'll let y'all get started. How are y'all going to look at homesickness through the lens of air, the lens of homesickness through the element of air. That's what I'm gonna say.
There you go.
Yeah, I think for me, we kind of already touched on it, but air really is life, right? Air is life.
Sunshine, let's start with you.
Great. Air is life. If we're going to
I've been told ball is life.
well,
But what is inside of a ball?
maybe if you stopped interrupting me, I'd be halfway through this devotion right now, Max.
We should take away his microphone.
A ball, of course, is inflated with.
Air. Thank you.
Just trying to help you out.
Yep, it's all full circle.
Unless it's a football.
These moments of connection can really breathe life into those who are feeling lonely and homesick. And so I think for me, my goal is to foster those moments of connection, hopefully with other people. Working emergency care, child care right now. And I think I've been living in the space of it's emergency child care. We just got to make sure kids are safe. And I've been missing an opportunity of creating those moments of connection like I would with a standard summer camp experience. And so I think for me, that's still really important to do. So that's what I'm going to focus on this week is still creating those moments of connection between people to help with that feeling of loneliness. And so that's my devotion. That's my weekly goal.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Okay. While I was thinking about homesickness and air, I was thinking about like what does home feel like, and it reminded me of like a gentle, warm summer breeze where it's like it's
summer breeze makes me feel fine.
okay,
Point.
That no. So anyway, I feel like home is like I'm really hot, and that just nice breeze comes along that makes me feel better. And then on the other hand, like homesickness to me feels like when I'm getting a really big blast or just a breeze that's just making my fingers like hurt because of how cold I feel, and it's just really uncomfortable and it's just not great. And so I was thinking about like what can I do to be a warm breeze for people? What can I do to be that uplifting, not like force of air, but like this just gentle uplifting? And I think for me it's just how do I give life to being more vocal with my compliments and with my appreciation, with my gratitude and with my praise of others. And so I'm going to really be intentional about uplifting other people this week. Max, how about you?
So the three of us have each been a part of a
podcast
training. Well, certainly a podcast, but also a training, like an elements training. And Ben, I'm going to ask you, can you define when somebody is described as windy, what does that mean according to this elements training?
Oh, that's such a big question. Okay, so help me if I make mistakes because you've all done this too, but like there's a lot of different things about a windy person, and Sunshine is a windy person, so he's going to be able to help us with this.
I am very windy.
But windy people are like the air. They're kind of everywhere. They're all over the place. Sometimes they can be a gale force tornado. Sometimes they can be a gentle breeze. And sometimes they, like if you think about like what does the wind evoke? It's like a howling wind. So sometimes like windy people can be considered moody. Sometimes like windy people have a lot of great ideas because they are like all over the place. They see everything, they feel everything, and so that's a little picture of what it is. Did I miss anything? That Sunshine? What do you think?
A lot of big idea stuff. Definitely needs to be kind of pulled in and grounded in facts and reality sometimes, but a lot of big ideas. The type of person when they're planning a birthday party was like, what if we build a roller coaster in their house?
And then the Earth person says, well,
who's got the budget for that?
Yeah, who has money for that? Also, like, we don't have time for that. Also, like, that's what the Earth person does. Does that answer your question, Max?
Yeah, and I think y'all did a great job of describing a windy person through a lens of, like, this is what they are at their best. This is the value that a windy person brings to their team. But I think that as a windy person myself, sometimes I worry about, oh, as a windy person, am I perceived as flippant or a distraction to the group? Are my big ideas coming out so far out of left field that I'm worried I'm throwing the progress of this group completely off? Because those are like those can be weaknesses of a windy person, correct? So I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, while a windy person can be distracting at times. What is something that we found was extremely successful when dealing with people who were feeling homesickness when we were camp counselors?
Oh man, that's so true, y'all. Distraction is a huge, huge thing for helping children deal with their homesickness.
Well, again, because you're creating moments where they can feel like they belong and they're doing something, right? They feel like they're a part
Well,
of something.
you're taking their mind off their homesickness to reestablish safety, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at here is, as I think through the lens of homesickness, I think I am at a point, I am sometimes shy to exhibit my windiness in my professional life. But I think that one thing I've learned and one thing that y'all have seen having worked close with me is that I'm actually at my best, can be at my best when I'm at my most windy. And so I want to use this next week to, I don't know, re-find my windiness. And how can I make others feel better, make others feel more at home in a time when feeling at home, it's like we're all uncomfortable right now with the realities of COVID and all that comes with it. How can I re-find my windiness and maybe be a charming distraction, a delightful distraction, and help people in that way, and hopefully not be a distraction in a negative way, but insert myself in a way that, oh, it's good to see this side of you again, Max. This is helping me right now. So that's just something I'm thinking about.
I always love being a little bit more authentic in order to be more, be ready to face the world a little bit better. So I love that.
Absolutely. And I'm thankful for you.
Speaking of thankful, let's move into our moments of gratitude.
Let's, shall we?
Yeah.
Who would like to go first? Max?
Sure. I will speak my gratitude toward Benny Golson, who, of course, is the final autograph that Victor Navorsky seeks. Victor Navorsky eventually makes his way into the Ramada Inn and watches Benny play his saxophone and, has a really pleasant conversation with Benny, gets that final autograph. It's nothing, it's not a super poignant conversation necessarily, but Benny was extremely gracious to Victor, grateful to just hear from another jazz fan, and obviously without Benny, this movie doesn't really come to a very satisfying conclusion. So I'm grateful for that as well, that Benny was a part of that. So thank you, Benny Golson.
I do love Benny Golson. It's a good moment. I love that moment. Mine is going to go to Mr. Milo Dragovich. I think for me, it is worth highlighting that legality and morality are sometimes two very separate things. And I think his willingness to do whatever he needed to do to help someone that he loved while not putting anyone else at risk except for himself is something that was just a beautiful moment. And I think that, I know we talked about it earlier, but I wanted to lift that up again. So Mr. Milo Dragovich is my person I would like to share gratitude with.
Oh, really tough situation. Okay. So we are remaining committed to our highlighting a female during our moments of gratitude. And this is a very male-dominated movie. It does not really pass the Bechdel test. And for reference, the test is, do two named women interact in a scene talking about something other than a man? And the answer is no. That does not happen.
It does not happen in this movie.
Right? And you studied film way more than this. Can you just elaborate on the Bechdel test a little bit?
Absolutely. It's really meant to be, it's indicative of the presence of women in the entire field of film and fiction. It is not necessarily saying that a movie that doesn't pass the Bechdel test can't be valuable and can't have worth. And can't be a phenomenal movie, but it is meant to highlight that women didn't really play a prominent role.
Underrepresented.
They're underrepresented. And it doesn't mean that every movie that passes the Bechdel test is a great representation of women.
Correct, yeah.
But it is saying on a very binary standard, they're either represented in this movie or not. And it's more of a just kind of a did it pass it? It's kind of a filter that you can look at things through and say.
So, in moral of the story is this movie does not pass. And I want to just lift that up before we dive into this. So, but I'm choosing Amelia for my gratitude, and like there are things that happen to Amelia in this movie that are not great. Amelia, her files are pulled illegally. Her superiors at the airport pull her file, knowing that she is close to Victor, in order to manipulate her into making his life worse. She just gets it really bad, and she's treated poorly, and it's not okay. And so I'm grateful for her, specifically for this interaction. And this is, again, not great, but Frank Dixon pulls her and says, "You're the kind of woman that can get any guy she wants. Why Victor Navorsky?" And Amelia responds with, "That's something a guy like you could never understand." And it just is really highlighting misogynistic behavior. It really just, her response is just, she's keenly aware. And it's just, I struggle with this lack of fair and good representation of positive women role models in this movie. And I'm grateful for her for this moment, for kind of just, not putting up with his crap. And I wish there were more of like sticking it to the man in this, but unfortunately the patriarchy is the worst. So I'm just grateful that
Ben's next tattoo.
Yeah.
The patriarchy is the worst.
Yeah, that'll be my next. That's a good point. Yes. Okay, that's I'm grateful for her.
So many great characters. Max, thank you so much for choosing The Terminal for us to watch.
As if there was any other choice.
We will keep people updated on Patreon about what the next choice will be next month, so y'all can go watch that.
One of these times we should let my
this.
sister choose.
Why?
Whose choice would that be?
Sophie's choice.
Yeah, but this is Max's choice.
I was just doing a Sophie's
doing a
choice
Sophie's
joke,
choice.
which is just a hilarious topic to
I don't
do
get it.
jokes about.
It's not. Do you not know what Sophie's choice is?
No.
We'll talk about it.
Great.
My sister's name is Sophie.
All right.
To catch everybody up at home.
Thank y'all so much for listening. I've been Sunshine Mayfield.
This has been Pruitt, and we also have
Standing at 6'1".
Oh my god.
First baseman, because his favorite player as a kid was Jim Thome.
This has been a Patreon exclusive. Thank y'all so much for listening.
He is from Raleigh, North Carolina, currently residing in Durham, North Carolina.
We will be here next time.
The city of medicine, not a podunk town.
You're gonna fade this part out, right?
I still haven't said my name, so no.
He's gonna do it in post.
I'm gonna keep going until I say my name, as if I'm a Destiny's Child song. Did I get that right?
Are you done yet?
I mean, if you would stop interrupting me. Again, standing at 6'1".
Halfway through this.
What's another fun fact? A baseball fan for life.
Yeah,
a
we got that
basketball
from you
fan.
being a first baseman. This is good.
Genuinely one of the best people you've ever heard in your ear holes. Sunshine and Pruitt would agree, despite my actions currently, that I am overall at least an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, you're a catch.
Not necessarily aesthetically, but just like heart-wise, it's a good heart. And a hood gart. His name, my name, Max Gongaware. Thank you for joining this exclusive episode of Bending Not Breaking. Part 2, The Terminal. We've had fun here today. I'm going to fade this in with the Bending Not Breaking theme music. It's going to be electric. Yeah, I said my name. Max Gongaware. Good night or good day. Depends on what time you're listening.